to the latest edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider, Bill Ryder. We're going to get right into it. Later in the show, we'll talk about SGA going for 50 again, but we had two big injuries from last night. One of them confirmed to be disastrous for the Mavs. Kyrie Irving, torn ACL, done for the season, Bill.
Oh.
Lasted 9 minutes into that game for the Kings. It looked immediately. We were texting you and I and producer Aaron, and you were like, it didn't look good. He had to be helped off the court. He stayed in to shoot the free throws and then off he went. Very gutsy. But then this morning we found out that the worst fears were confirmed. Your thoughts? You confirmed this. He's out for the rest of the season, and it's not looking good.
No, I mean, how much can one fan base and one organization endure? I mean, and I had this question posed to me by a radio producer today that kind of blew my mind, and it was, who's had a worse season, the Mavs or the Suns? And it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And I think the answer is Dallas. I think outside of the Sixers, this is the most disastrous season that's happened in the NBA, because you've got this sort of present day reality of every single player that matters. And Kyrie is the critical player that matters, who's out. And you have traded away, obviously, Luka Doncic in your entire future. It's just, I don't know what Nico Harrison did in a past life, but he is, I would hope, has more than made up for it now.
Yeah, the karma here is really not good. They need to have some sort of like prayer circle or burn some sage or something, because, I mean, part of this is self-inflicted, right? You decided to move on from Luka Doncic, and you had your reasoning for doing it about his conditioning and his diet and whether or not his body would hold up, and you didn't want to pay him the supermax and whatever. But your plan here, you couldn't have foreseen that Kyrie Irving would blow out his ACL when he has had a very good season and has been largely available and was an all-star and was cruising towards this offseason, probably opting out of a player option at $43.9 million so he could get paid the money that they didn't want to pay Luka. And now, I mean, maybe they still do that because it's an ACL, not an Achilles, or maybe he opts in and they just wait. There's so many ripple effects here, up to and including what happens with their. You want to do the money thing first? Do you want to do the standings? What do you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, look, let's do whatever you want, because I was just texting with some of the people that are close to Kyrie, and this isn't shocking, but they're bowled over with shock, right? I don't think they know what they're going to do. I mean, obviously this just happened, and it feels sort of weird and obnoxious in this role that I have to ask, and the answer is, we're not sure. It's brutal, because you're right. He turns 33, as you noted, in a few weeks, and he has been great this year. He has been durable. He's had a phenomenal year. I mean, he has been so good, but there is a bit of a track record, as there are with a lot of guys, of being hurt over the years. And the problem for him is, unlike LeBron James, who's built like an Avenger, or even Kevin Durant, Kyrie is by NBA standards, a smallish guard. In this, what he does and what he needs at 33 years old, you hope he comes back. You hope he's fine. This is the kind of injury that you worry has an impact on the other side of it at his age, just in terms of how dynamic he can be. I don't know where you go from here. If you're Kyrie, I guess you probably just opt in and show proof of life after this next season.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's something that the Mavs would want to see too, right? So you have that fail safe, and then but then also that takes away from potential earning power, because now you're another year on when you go to sign that next deal, right? You're not going to be 33 when you sign that next deal. You're going to be 34. Now, all of a sudden, it's okay. Well, how many years and how much money do we want to give to 34-year-old Kyrie Irving, as opposed to 33-year-old Kyrie Irving coming off of his 9th All-Star appearance, and he was healthy and he was playing well. And, we had a theory of the case with him and Anthony Davis, and like, okay, maybe we didn't get to the finals this year, but, we were scrappy, and all that goes out the window. I mean, it's, and you don't know how much of next season he's going to miss, right? He got hurt on March 3rd. So the recovery time, and then he's got to get back on the court. You don't know, is he going to miss half the season?
Yeah, well, I think at least, right? Here's the other thing that occurred to me, John, in this context, and maybe it's a stretch, but there's been some credible reporting that there are 4 to 6 teams out there that would be interested in Kevin Durant, that are consider themselves contender levels. And one of the teams that have been cited was the Dallas Mavericks, right? As maybe that's a place he would pair up with Kyrie and Anthony Davis. And so I was talking to some people over the weekend, just front office people around the NBA, and not people in Dallas. But the sense I got is, Durant to Dallas is something we've heard. Maybe if you're Kevin Durant, are you even interested? Does that get crossed off your list now?
Yeah.
Like, if you're the Dallas Mavericks, does this just cross? Does it make you not only a team without Luka and without now Kyrie for the foreseeable future? Does it make you a lot less interesting as a destination to bring in a third person who was supposed to pair with AD and Kyrie? I think it might.
It's an excellent question. I think it might, probably would. If I'm KD, I don't see how I'm going there and reuniting with Kyrie when I don't know when Kyrie is going to be back. And by the way, you mentioned Anthony Davis, he has his own injury issues.
Yeah.
So you can't technically rely on him. And if you're AD, are you now rushing back? Are you rushing back?
That's a great point.
Like, for what?
That's a great point. No, you're not. This season was all. I thought the season was already lost, and I can't remember where you came down on this, but you could have made a counter argument. Hey, Kyrie's played really well. They've been, sort of plucky. When Anthony Davis gets back, there is nothing to. Anthony Davis is not going to be able to carry what is left of this team. Everybody's hurt. Everybody's hurt. Anyway, you're right. That's a great point.
Yeah. The Mavs situation has now gotten considerably worse just for this season too, right? So they've fallen to 10th place. They're only one game back of the Clips, the Kings, and the Wolves, but I think we'd agree that all three of those teams are in a much better situation. They're 3.5 up on the Suns, Bill, which previously I would have said they're going to be fine. They're going to make the play-in. Now all of a sudden 3.5 up on the Suns doesn't feel great. They're only 4 up on the Blazers. The Blazers all of a sudden might be in the mix here.
Oh, dude, with the big win against your Sixers. By the way, I just want to throw this out there as part of this. My buddy Jeff, he must be listening to the pod. He lives in Dallas. Just sent me a live photo from his neighborhood. It is a truck, and painted in huge paint on the back of this giant truck is the F Nico Harrison. My buddy said these are everywhere in Dallas.
I'm sure. I was texting with one of my Mavs fan buddies who is, just still reeling, obviously, from the Luka situation, and now is double reeling and, was lamenting everything that happened last night. And he said to me, you know what, let them move to Vegas. Like he's completely put out.
Yeah, this ownership group is going to be. They're also raising ticket prices. I mean, they're raising ticket prices next year.
That was something else. Last night, just hours before the Kyrie thing went down, they announced that they were raising ticket prices by 8%. Like, I mean, they don't have. They're not clairvoyant, right? They couldn't have seen this coming. But in terms of timing and like all-time PR disasters, they could not have had a worse, I don't know, month and a half. A month, really. It's not even been a month.
It feels like I was doing the same thing. I'm like, has it been 6 weeks? Like, no, it just feels like if you're 6 years, if you're, by the way, Portland, right? Sorry to go back to what you, I've got HQ producers calling me, so I just wanted to write them back, and we'll get you guys a little bit. Yeah. The Trailblazers maybe is the team that I would take, which is because I don't trust the Suns at all to do anything. I don't trust the
Suns at all either. And the Blazers, at least earlier in the year, I was of the thinking that, like, what are the Blazers doing? Why are they trying to win games? They should be starting Donovan Clingan, and dominating shouldn't be anywhere near the starting lineup and whatever. And they just were like, no, we're going to play this young core. And if we win some games, we win some games. And now all of a sudden, I mean, that could be like a fun situation for Portland where you're like, okay, I was thinking about this last night when the whole Kyrie thing went down. Both the Suns and the Trailblazers have 28 wins, Bill. And for one of those teams, it's an abject disaster. And for the other team, they're like, we got 28 wins. This is pretty good.
And the other thing is, I really think that playoff experience for young teams, having some confidence, getting to the playoffs, which feels like a victory, in this case, the play in some meaningful games. And obviously, if you're the 10 seed, you're guaranteed one meaningful game, and you got to win twice to have a playoff series. I think that benefits Portland. I do. I think that's a nice, because Phoenix is going to get blown up, right? Whatever they do or don't do, it's all toxic dysfunction. The Mavs are toast for the next many years, clearly this year, next year. For Portland, I think that's a nice little bit of gravy on top of what's been a surprising season.
So the Suns, again, are 3.5 back, and the Blazers are 4 games back with 20 to go. That's pretty far to go. But the Mavs, the
wheels can come off
Mavs right now? You've got all the Spencer Dinwiddie that you can handle.
That's what it is.
You've got no front court. And I guess you're going to ask Max Christie and Klay Thompson to just like, hey, you're going to get a Najee Marshall. Congratulations. Much more usage rate for you. Like,
All right, ready for the schedule? I'm gonna throw you the schedule real quick.
Yeah,
just like upcoming. Bucks, Grizzlies, Suns. Okay, the Spurs are beatable. Spurs twice. Rockets, your Sixers, Pacers, Pistons, Nets, Knicks. I mean, there's some tough. They could lose most of those games.
Yeah, that's rough. That is such a brutal development for the Mavs. You mentioned this question that you had gotten asked by your radio producer. I asked a similar version of it on Blue Sky, and I got most answers were in one group, but I want to run it by you. My question was, who's in a worse spot right now? And you can frame this however you want, for this season, for the future, whatever. Who's in a worse spot right now between Mavs fans and Sixers fans?
Wow. You guys are in a pretty bad spot too. Paul George's contract, Embiid's health uncertainty.
And Embiid's contract. I mean, with
contract,
Kyrie,
I think, but you have two young players.
That's the one part.
You have Jared McCain and you have Tyrese Maxey. It's a really close call. Here's the thing. I want to, the right answer should be that the Sixers are in the worst spot. However, even though he's on the hot seat, I trust Daryl Morey to potentially navigate it more effectively than if Nico is still the GM in Dallas, then I think it's Dallas, because you have some really difficult decisions to make over the next 12, 18, 24 months. So I'll go Mavs are in a worse spot, but that flips if Nico gets fired the next 30 seconds.
I'm really torn on this, because on the one hand, if you're a Mavs fan, you just saw your generational talent, a 25-year-old, 5-time first-team All-NBA player, get traded in the middle of the night to the Lakers, where you're going to have to watch him command that team forever. And like that, what a kick in the stomach that one is, right? And then also Kyrie goes down, and any hope that you had for the immediate future goes out the window. So I was leaning Mavs. I guess I am still leaning Mavs. The thing with the Sixers is it's been over a decade of, hey, maybe, no, of course not, right? Like where you start to get your hopes up about Joel Embiid, like, oh, maybe he'll be healthy this year. And then the answer is, of course not. Oh, maybe they'll get out of the second round. Oh, of course not. Maybe this general manager who comes in will know what he's doing, or not get fired and replaced by the league office. Oh, of course not. Like, so I think that they're, plus, as you mentioned, those two contracts that are like next to unmovable.
That's the thing. There is some flexibility in the sort of medium shorter term for Dallas than there is for Philadelphia, but you have to have someone who knows how to navigate that. And if you're going to give away Luka Doncic, I have no trust that you will. So it's I think the Sixers are in a worse position in terms of in a vacuum the framework of what they have, but I think they have a better steward to try to navigate them through that.
It's bad both ways. Mavs fans, Sixers fans, it totally sucks. Yeah. Let's figure out which WNBA team we're going to be rooting for moving forward. We're going to take a quick break here, and then on the other side, we'll continue this conversation about Kyrie Irving being out for the season, and also what's going on with Jaren Jackson Jr. He rolled an ankle last night. Also, worst timing possible for the Memphis Grizzlies. That could impact the Western Conference pecking order. We'll discuss that coming up. This is Beyond the Arc.
Gives it to Jenkins for the championship. A 16 beats a 1. From sweet to elite to the Final Four.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. A reminder, you can get us wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please download, subscribe, leave a review, and then if you listen on Spotify, if you look below the play button on the Spotify app in full screen mode, you can leave us a comment or a question about the show. All right, so Kyrie goes down, and immediately we thought the worst, and then, we find out this morning that the worst case scenario is the worst case scenario. Tore his ACL. He's out for the season. The Mavericks are absolutely reeling. Mavs fans are reeling. While all this is happening, almost concurrently last night, Bill, the Memphis Grizzlies, and we're still awaiting word on this with Triple J, but Jaren Jackson Jr. came down awkwardly trying to block a shot last night. He has been unbelievable this year. And now we're waiting word on, he didn't return. He only played 2 minutes last night. We're waiting word on whether or not he's going to be out for an extended period. If so, Bill, the Grizz are reeling right now. They didn't have Ja last night. They've lost 3 in a row in 7 of 10. They fall into 4th place. They're only a game back of the Lakers and the Nuggets, but they're only 1 up on the Rockets. And their strength of schedule moving forward is the 9th toughest. You and I both like the Grizzlies, but Ja, Ja. Triple J is their best player, has been their best player this season, and I think is like their most indispensable. They've been kind of like up and down with Ja in and out of the lineup. Without Jaren Jackson Jr., I think any chance that they have of doing anything in the postseason is lost.
The Kyrie Irving injury is heartbreaking, and it's sort of, it's salt in the wound, but the Mavs weren't a serious contender. They weren't a serious team. And so the Kyrie news sucks, but it's worth talking about it, but it doesn't derail a serious contender. Triple J, if he's not there, I think it's the end of the serious contender list, but a serious contender is no longer a contender. Memphis is hard to peg, right? I find them different conferences. I like Memphis more than I like, say, the Knicks. To sort of, if you and I had to draft let's say there's $10,000
power rank,
and we had to draft, power rank draft. I'm taking Memphis. After the 3 or 4 teams, maybe 5, maybe the Warriors, I'm taking Memphis. They're sort of at the end of that list of, I think, legitimate teams that can make a run. So this is hugely significant, even if it's not as bright under the lights as the Kyrie Irving injury. For all the reasons you said, this guy has been the fulcrum of their defense. He's critical to what they do. They don't have a margin for error the way that maybe some other teams would, and he's their most important player. You hope the news is going to be good, but it would be brutal for Memphis because they're a question mark, and I was excited in the postseason to see what the answer is. Like, what is their actual level?
Me too. I want to talk about what it does to the Grizzlies as we await to find out like how much time that Jaren Jackson might miss because of this ankle issue. But Bill, the other thing here that's critical is that this could cost him an outrageous amount of money because he twisted an ankle on March 3rd. He's played 58 games. The award threshold is 65. He's 7 games away from it, Bill. He made an all-star team, but he's now, because Wemby is out, he's a DPOY contender. He's also a contender for all NBA. If he made either of those, if he was the DPOY Defensive Player of the Year, or if he made all NBA, he would be Supermax eligible, which means 5 years for $345 this offseason. If he doesn't make it to 65 games and he doesn't make all NBA or become Defensive Player of the Year, now you're looking at 4 for $229, which is the difference of an extra year and $116 million because you rolled your ankle. Bill, that is outrageously bad luck.
Full disclosure, I don't care about people missing out $160 million when they make $225, but I should. And you're absolutely good. Producer Aaron wrote in the chat, "Congrats, Grizz." I haven't done the list. He seems like he'd be a lock to be somewhere on the All NBA.
I was thinking about.
He's on there.
I hadn't sat down and done my 15.
Me either.
But I would be shocked if he's not on there.
Yes, same thing. With all the guys that are going to miss,
if
don't
he's
qualify.
Not the Defensive Player of the Year, he's second to Evan Mobley.
Right.
I mean, like, he's right there. He's going to make first team all defense. You have to think, considering the year that he's had, he's going to make all
second
NBA.
or third team. Second or third team.
Yeah,
I mean,
a lock. And so, okay, fine. I guess you don't have to like cry too hard over a guy who's going to be a multi-millionaire.
No, but it's a good point.
Way. But
it's an obnoxious point by me.
$1 million.
I know. You're right. You're right. I'm trying. Where are we at? Are we at like 6? We have like 20 games left. Is that?
I got a lot.
Is that? So I think that's right. So he basically,
yes, we're at roughly
can
20
only
games.
miss 9 or 10 games. I mean, it's
so tight. And if you're him, my buddy,
right? That's the problem.
I was saying my buddy last night when I was talking to him about how much money that this could cost Triple J. You know, when people blow out their Achilles and you get those little scooters and you got to push around them, you put your knee down on the scooter and you push. Jaren Jackson should get whatever the equivalent of that is for an ankle injury and just like hobble up and down the court 7 more times, like play whatever the minimum requirement is in minutes per game in order to qualify for 7 games, because that is a ridiculous amount of money that he's missing out on.
Here's the issue too. You get to a point, unintended consequence of this rule. You have this sort of, you're crossways. If you're Memphis, your priority, as long as you stay in the top 6, which you will, is you got to make sure you're healthy for the playoffs. So you can't rush back, man. We need you. Oh, and we'll save a bunch of money. His is no. I have to get back on the floor. And so, again, who knows what'll happen? But if there's like the timeline is of when he's available is up against his own personal deadline. Now he's got his own best interests are not dovetailing with what Memphis needs for a postseason run.
That's a great point. As producer Aaron pointed out immediately, like the Grizzlies are like, okay, well, this isn't great for us this season, but money wise, it's fantastic because now we get them at a discount. So let's talk about that rule change, because last year it was implemented where you had to make it to the 65 game threshold. Under the old rules, where voters like yourself could just decide whether or not Jaren Jackson was all NBA worthy at 58 games. If that was his season, right? It's done now. He's not going to make it back. Do we think that would have been enough to put him all NBA? I mean, we'll have to wait it out and see what everybody else does the rest of the way. But like,
what's interesting about that is part of the reason, and I haven't done the list, that he's a lock, is that several other guys are not going to qualify because of this rule. So then I have put guys, so when I've done this, before this rule got put into place, the 65 game threshold, I put multiple guys on my all NBA team who were in the 50 game range. And for me, I put them third team. And I'm doing this off the top of my head, John, but I'm pretty sure there were years, plural, where I had Durant third team, where some guys had him second, and I had LeBron, I think, third team, where some people had him second. Because, okay, you missed a bunch of games, but when you were out there, your level was so incredible. So yeah, I think it'd be a closer call. By the way, I also think I'll be really curious if the NBA, this has been, for the NBA, something they've been intractable on. And you know when you have a boss wherever you work, and they have, not here, of course, but they have some dumb rule in corporate America, and you have to just like pretend like it's a good idea, and you have to sell it, whatever. I used to work at Walmart, right? So we'd have these dumb rules, and the customer like, why? Like, oh no, it's a great rule here at Walmart. That was the vibe that I got when I was at the NBA league offices. I haven't been back this year, like the last 6 months, but the last time I was there, just walking around talking to people, they were over the top, and this will never change. It'll always be 65 games. This is important. We think it matters. I'm really curious if there's some fallout on these levels, if this maybe loosens up their intractability a little bit.
I don't know, but I would expect that if you are the NBA PA, or in this case specifically Jaren Jackson, that you are not exactly thrilled about this, right? I mean, he needs to play in 7 of the remaining 21 games to qualify. And I mean, short of them amputating his leg or giving him an ankle transplant bill, he has to get out there.
Right. But the thing is, you also have to stay healthy. So, it just depends on how bad the injury is.
If you, it really does. It really does. Yeah. We'll have to wait and see on that one. About the Grizzlies, let's just sort of like spitball here a little bit on how this impacts them in terms of like their prospects this season. So as I mentioned, they're a game back of the Nuggets and the Lakers, but they're just one up on the Rockets. I mean, do you care at all about their seeding? I mean, right now they'd be in a 4-5 matchup with the Rockets either way, even if they fell to 5. It seems unlikely that the Warriors are going to catch them. They're 5 back. That's a long way for the Warriors to come.
Yeah, that's where I'd be worried. I don't think you have to worry. I don't think 4 or 5 matters. I do think 6 matters, because you're playing the Lakers or the Nuggets. And it's still weird to say this, like it's just a given, but it is. Those 2 teams are good enough to make runs to the finals, right? So it's, they have, both those teams have flaws, but I think that the Lakers and the Nuggets are just, they're a level or 2 above whoever's below them, which for me would be Memphis. So I don't think 4 or 5 matters. And what is it? You said 4.5 games, whatever it is, 5.5 games.
They're 5 games. They're 5 games up on the Warriors. So it would be,
that's the
wheels
only
would really have to come off there.
Yeah. If the wheels come off that badly, you're in big trouble. So I'm not too. Anyway. And I think if you're healthy, I could be wrong. I love Memphis against Houston. I just think Houston's too young. I'm just going to stick with that. And so I'm not worried about having to go to Houston for the 7th game. I don't know. I'd rather be right than be the person.
Aaron makes a good point though. The 4-5 is on the OKC side of the bracket. So that's not, but get out of that round. You
got to go through them eventually. I get it. But you got to go through those guys eventually. Right. Yeah. So it's,
we're actually tomorrow, we're going to do a look at some playoff matchups that we might want to see, including what the best finals for the NBA would be. So we'll get into a little of those hypotheticals tomorrow. So come and join us for that. We're going to take another quick break. And then on the other side, we're going to talk about those Oklahoma City Thunder and SGA going off for another 50-point game last night and his MVP prospects. That's coming up. This is Beyond the Arc.
Who's in
Who's out? Let the madness begin. The NCAA Men's Basketball Championship Selection Show on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. You can find us on YouTube at Beyond the Arc CBS. Please hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and if you click on the little bell symbol, you'll get notified when we go live. Oklahoma City, Bill, 50 wins. They've won 4 in a row. They're cruising just like the Cavs are. They've won 8 of their last 10. They've got the best point differential in the NBA. They're full strength. And then SGA last night, Bill, 51 points, super efficient, 18 of 30 from the floor, 10 of 10 from the line. Bill, prior to this season, in 427 games, he had never hit 50, never scored 50 points. In the last 19 games, he's scored 50 points 4 times. Nobody else this season has done it more than once. Look, I talked about this with Sam. I've talked about it with you. The Joker numbers are really undeniable, but the narrative around SGA is like
the narrative.
Really
all right. So I'm going to throw some numbers at you to underline and underscore the brutality of this vote. So what you just cited,
crazy.
4th 50-point game, 19 games. He has 9 40-point games. That's the most in the NBA. He has 37 30-point games. That's the most in the NBA. He has 59 20-point games. That's the most in the NBA. He has scored at least 20 points in 56 consecutive games. And do you know the next closest streak? Jalen Brunson at 7.
Wow.
I mean, this dude, but because I looked this up this morning because I was getting a headache thinking about how I'm going to vote. Joker is averaging a career high in points, career high in points this year, career high in assists this year, career high in 3-point shooting so far this year. He's taking almost 4.5 threes a game. I mean, 28, 13, and 10. I'm rounding, right? It's 28, 12.7, 10.4. And I know we keep SGA, they're both amazing. They both deserve to be MVP. I can only vote one first for one. So that's the next level conversation that's the context. SGA has a markedly better basketball team around him. They're young, but they're so much better and deeper. Joker's just like, all right, you bums, get on my back. I'll carry you. Occasionally, I'll let Jamal off, and he'll do a couple things, and he'll get back on my back. It's brutal, dude. I don't know what I'm going to do.
I don't know what you're going to do either and we're going to keep talking about it, and we'll talk through it on the show. But those Joker numbers that you just mentioned are historic. I've said this multiple times, but he's on pace for 50, 40, 80 splits. So with a triple-double, which has never been done. So
as a center,
and I'm like, okay, well, it's got to be Joker. But then I look back at SGA and I'm like, well, he does have a 50-win team, and it's the best team in the Western Conference, and they're like winning pretty easily. And like, he's the reason why he's the best player on the best team. Like, we've always rewarded that. And maybe it's it's such a hard vote. It's an incredibly difficult vote.
The year that Russell, I know it's not the same thing, but the year that Russell Westbrook won the MVP is one of the few years I didn't have a vote. And I was pissed off because I would never have voted for him. I don't think he would have been in my top 3. It didn't end this way, but there was a point where LeBron was trending toward his best statistical season of his career. And my sort of thought was, how can you not have LeBron? It wasn't even the conversation. He's the best player of his generation, and he's having his individual best year. Joker is having, like, it's not even a question. He's having his best individual season.
Yeah.
He is the best player on earth right now. It's his generation. It's his moment. He is carrying his team to the 2 or the 3 seed. It's so last week I was Joker. I was team Joker. I was like, but it's really close.
It's really close. If the question is who's the best player on the planet, I think everybody ends up with the same answer.
But with value, it's the same.
It should be.
If you swap these guys.
Well, I mean, Oklahoma City might never lose a game.
Right. And I think, again, not a criticism of SGA. SGA is amazing. It's like when you debate who's the top 5 players of all time. You're insulting someone by putting them 6, but it's really great praise, right? Both these guys are great. SGA is great. Joker's great. I don't think SGA can carry this team the same way Joker does. Maybe he can. He's so good.
He is so good. I don't think that they would be as good. No. And to throw just a little bit more cold water on what happened last night, because the Rockets are most of the time a really good defensive team. Last night they were without like everybody good. There, no Amon, no Şengün, no FVV, no Dylan Brooks, no Steven Adams. I mean, that was like a mash unit that they rolled out there. And when you don't have Amon Thompson and Dylan Brooks to throw at SGA is going to have a pretty good night. And not surprisingly, he went for 1.
Also, to just like reiterate this Joker point, I'm just going to pick one guy, right? So the Thunder all year have been the best or second best team in the NBA, wherever you want to put the Cavs by record or by just, reality. Chet has not been around for most of that. He's around now. Last night, he had a bunch of blocks, some steals. I think he's averaging 3 blocks per game over his last 8 or 9 games, whatever it is. I mean, again, not taking away from SGA. He's got another, I think Chet's a star. He's got another star next to him. He's got all this depth. On the MVP vote, it's just, I still think it's Joker, I guess is what I'm saying. The narrative be damned.
Yeah. I mean, we got another 20 games to work through this thing. It's going to come right down to the wire. When do you have to have your vote in?
It's usually the Friday after the regular season ends, I think, or Saturday or Sunday. It's right in that play-in stretch.
Man, it's going to be a tough one.
It's going to be the worst.
We got to talk through that. We got to talk through first team All NBA, and then the rest of those teams. A lot still to figure out as the NBA season funnels towards the playoffs. Let's wrap it up with you want to do a little team of the night?
Yeah, I think we're all going to do the same team. Maybe we're not. I'm just going to go with the Thunder because I don't think I've done this enough. And yeah, they beat up on a hospital, on a group of guys, on a lesser version of the Rockets. But I just seeing Holmgren out there again, right? He's sort of getting back in the flow, and how good Shea was. Just the whole, they're so good, man. I mean, I know we know this, but they're my team of the night.
They were excellent last night again against a banged up Rockets team, but still very good. I toyed around here. I was thinking about the Warriors. They beat the Hornets, which is no great shakes. Right. However, they are in the playoffs proper now, Bill. They are the 6th seed. They are a half game up on the Clippers and the Kings and the Wolves, and we won't mention the poor Mavericks again. I thought about them, but I'm going to go with the Blazers because the Blazers, as I mentioned, now have the same number of wins as the Suns, and I was totally against this. And because I wanted them to, we came into this season, you and I, thinking that they might be the worst team in the league this year. And they decided, no, we've got some nice pieces and we're just going to keep running them out there. And if they win games, great. That's okay. And now they have the same number of wins as the Phoenix Suns. And that is, as I mentioned, an absolute disaster for the Suns. But for the Blazers, they're looking around going, this is not a bad year. I don't know how much Blazers basketball you've watched. Toumani Camara,
not enough.
Camara is a nice piece for them. Like, he's kind of like, I'm looking at him the same way I was looking at Amon last year, where I'm like, man, I don't know if enough people know about this kid.
I have to say, I mean, I've been pretty hard. I mean, just, I think I don't think I've written about Joe Cronin, but credit to that front office. Like they've done a nice job. They're
all right. So congrats to the Blazers and Oklahoma City. We'll be back tomorrow. We're going to discuss, as I mentioned, what's the best possible finals matchup for the NBA, and also dig into some playoff matchups before that we might be excited to check out. And be sure to check out everything on CBSSports.com. We're going to have all kinds of news and updates on Kyrie Irving and where the Mavs go from here. But for now, for our NBA insider, Bill Reiter, I'm John Gonzalez. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow on YouTube.